Welcome to watchJojo Cooking. Today we're going to be covering all the essentials I believe you should have in your kitchen, pros and cons, and what I'm looking for in every piece of equipment. First, we have the always reliable and my favorite tool, kitchen knife. So I've done a full-blown knife video as well. So if you want greater details there, then go on to that video, of course. And I'll cover the basics right now. I'm looking for a tough steel that can hold an edge for a while. I like full tang blades. I like the weight. But at the end of the day, what matters with a knife is what feels comfortable in your hands. Something you can do all your chopping with, feel very comfortable, keep good form, etc. And you want at least one like proper knife. If all your knives in your kitchen are serrated blades, you're not a real cook. And yeah, no, keep your knives sharp. Sharpen them before and after every use. And honestly, once you start doing your own edges as well, like you can bring them to a professional grinder, but once you start doing your own edges, I find that very relaxing. But once again, covered that in a previous video. So let's move on to the next one, the kitchen steel. Honing the blade, making sure the edge is straight instead of zigzagged from all the divots and throwing it around and like putting it in the sink to wash it later. Side note, always wash your knife as soon as you're done using it and don't let it sit in the sink. And definitely don't let it sit underwater. That is a great way to get a cut. But nonetheless, steel. I keep mine pretty clean. I like a nice long steel. And that I just find is essential to keeping your edge sharp and make it so you have an easier and better time doing all your various cuts in the kitchen. What I'm looking for in a pot is I'm looking for stainless steel interior. I stay away from Teflon because Teflon, while it's like a no-stick surface, and that's all fine and dandy, if you've ever lived with roommates or you've ever made the mistake yourself as well of using steel wool or something that is not Teflon happy when trying to clean, then you'll know the nightmare that is having your no-stick pan turn into a stick pan. And the same applies to pots. My first set, I made the same mistake. That's why we got these guys. I believe if you're looking for bare bones minimum, I think you should have 2 pots. Always 2 pots, because you always have your sauce and your pasta, or you have like something else like a mashed potatoes and your gravy. Like there's always 2 things that need to be cooked up or heated up, and you don't want to heat something up to eat it and then have to empty it from that container, wash said container, heat up another substance, and hope to God that your original substance is like actually hot still. That sounds awful. So minimum is 2. Medium size should be fine if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people. I recommend getting something a little larger if you're cooking for like multiple people, a family. And of course, on the subject of pots, I will reference the stock pot. This is a huge 12-liter plus stock pot. I use it for all my soups, and if I am going absolutely crazy on sauces. Great for batch cooking. If you've got a deep freeze at home, you can freeze what you don't eat right away. Perfect for cooking for multiple people. Say you're doing a big family dinner, 8, 12, maybe even more people. You're going to want to have one of those in your repertoire if you're doing anything saucy. So I'm looking for in pots. Next up, we have pans. So I have from my set a nice pan here with a lid. Great for doing like small sauces and like reductions, etc., because you have that huge surface area. But the catch here is that this guy doesn't have a lip. It's basically a straight shot down. So this guy is not that great for doing eggs or pancakes because you can't get a good flip going. But material is fantastic. So this is one of my roommate's pans. And as you can see, it's a no-stick surface, but you can see all these scratches. That makes it a lot more likely to stick. But I'm using this as my example of what I'm looking for in a lip. You can see the curvature here. Makes a big difference. It's even more exaggerated in this pan. This one has a huge, great lip for flipping. If I had to pick one pan I had to have with me, I would pick this guy because it's got a lid. It's got the right material because it doesn't have that Teflon no stick nonsense. And something I'm hoping to add to my repertoire in a future video is cast iron. And I'd love to show you an example, but I don't have one yet. Cast iron has the nice advantage of being very easy to clean, super next to indestructible. Even if you burn on, you can just scrape it clean with like even steel wool. Like it can't be killed. And bonus points is if it's cast iron, it's all metal, and what you can do is you can pop it in the oven. So it means it allows you to make something that needs to be started with like a saute and finished with a bake, maybe a pot pie or something. And you can do that all with one piece of equipment, which is always nice. Very pricey though. It's on the wish list. Next up, we have mixing bowls. Usually come in sets. The more you have, the merrier. Makes life a hell of a lot easier. If you have to only have one or two, I would go for a large size because you never want to get stuck. Like I do honestly in several videos where I have to use so many different bowls because my batch is too big. So if I had to choose, I'd take one of these like medium large ones, make my life a lot easier. What's nice here is every time you're doing a sauce, anytime you're whisking something together you want to mix, these are perfect because the blender will curve in if you're using a stick blender like I tend to, or if you're using a whisk, if you're doing like a mayo based aioli or something, you can just whisk it up nice and easy. And yeah, I go once again stainless steel, nice and easy to clean. Something terrible happens, it gets stuck on, you leave it in your fridge and it starts growing a culture around the edge there. You can just scrape it clean with some steel wool if you have to. Next up, we have strainers. Important for your pastas, important for soup, etc. If I had to choose one, I'd actually go with a fine wire mesh strainer like this one. And the reason I would choose this is small enough that all the liquid's going to get through, but no solids are going to get through, period. So this makes it great for doing a soup stock, like I've done in a previous video. Bonus points, this one actually has curvature on the end here. So when it sits on top of a large pot, then this kind of locks it in, and then this is long enough that it locks in. So you can just sit this on top of a pot and strain. So you can go pot to pot and strain nice and easily. So that's awesome. So other people have like the plastic ones with the big holes, and they're great for pasta, but like they're not great for much else. So once again, if we had to pick one strainer to have, this is the one I'm gonna go with. Next, we have the multi-purpose grater. It's pretty great. Got your traditional like grating side for your large pieces of cheese, good for your tacos, your nachos, everything you need to grate cheese for. Got a finer set of holes, and that will be good for like Parmesan in a pinch. I prefer to have like an even smaller hole for Parmesan, but like this guy will just obliterate the Parmesan, so I'm not a huge fan. And this one even has a slicer on one side, which is pretty okay if you're like say doing a quick sandwich, you just have a stick. You need to get a couple of slices on for your sandwich. I prefer to grate and melt, but that's just me. Finally, we have the utensils. So, tongs. I like ones that lock together because they're easier to store, take up less surface area. Metal is pretty great because you can't melt it, but you also run the risk, especially with say a Teflon pan, scraping it. Using metal and Teflon, it's how you end up with those divots. That's how you turn your no stick pan into a stick pan. So I actually have a couple pairs of plastic ones as well I like to use. And so they're metal until the end, which is a hard rubber. Now, still prone to like being melted if I'm crazy and put it on, like, forget it in a pot that's like cranked. But it usually is enough to stand up to the heat that's required. And I've yet to find like a pair of tongs that are like wooden, which I think would be the most ideal, that like work for me. But when I find them, I will let you know. Proper flipping spatula for like your eggs and such. These ones have seen some battle, obviously. As long as they don't have a fully melted lip and you can still get them under the egg, they're doing their job. If it's got a nice edge here that it can scrape off a casserole dish, if you're trying to do that, then perfect. It'll do the job. Spoon with holes for whenever you're trying to pick up a solid out of something. Say a chicken bone that you missed or something out of a stock, or if you are perhaps taking the brine from a brick of Parmesan and put that in your tomato soup to melt it in for flavor. You melt it in, you get all that flavor, and then you need to take out the rind again because it's not edible. So this works great for that. Of course, picking up liquids. I like to have like a proper ladle to pick up all my soups, my sauces, and spread them out evenly and not have to do so much pouring straight out of the pot. So that's great. And of course, when it comes to sauces, nothing beats the $1 million tool. And this guy's great at like when you have sauces in your mixing bowls, just getting every little bit of it out. Same one goes for your soups, etc. Honestly, this is where you get your best food yield. If you were to make one purchase in a kitchen, they say this will always be a rubber spatula. Cutting boards, also covered in the knife video. What I'm looking for is I'm usually looking for a hard wood of some sort. I'm not a huge fan of plastic. I find it stains, holds on to flavors too much. One could argue wood holds on to flavors more, but I've just had some bad experiences with really bad plastic cutting boards. So I'm all about the wood now. And I actually like these rubber stoppers here because it makes it so that it'll stay on the surface I put it on, whereas with like a plastic cutting board, I'd have to put a wet rag or something to increase friction to stop it from moving, because if your cutting board is moving around, then your knife is moving around also quite unpredictably, and that's a great way to get a terrible cut. Boom. Even when I'm not wearing a jacket and we're all doing this show, I'm always got an apron on when I'm in the kitchen. It's probably a symptom of me just being a line cook and being really bad about using it as my go-to rag to clean off my knife. If I'm done cutting something, I want to give it a wipe off, I've got a surface right there for it. Also, keeps the pants clean, can't complain about that either. So I love having an apron in the kitchen, that's just me. Full body aprons are fine too, I've got a couple of those as well. And of course, because I am all about cleaning as you go, just as many rags of whatever quality you want. They can be beat up, they can have holes in them, it doesn't matter. You're scrubbing surfaces and you're using soap. Keep the kitchen clean and life will be so much easier for you. There's nothing worse than working so hard to cook dinner, finish dinner, and look at your kitchen and it looks like a bomb went off. Yeah, this is nothing. This is nothing on what my roommates are capable of. Today, we covered all the kitchen essentials. What I'm looking for in every piece of equipment, pros and cons, and hope this gets you started on your kitchen journey and your ability to finally start feeding yourself for a change. Have a good one. Thank you for watching. Watch JoJo Cooking.